And we just have to ask ourselves, is Ruyard Kipling not like the Lana Del Rey of the 20th century? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Read Good, Draw Bad, where we love to read really, really good and draw pretty darn bad. Today we are reading a tale of adventure, holy men in India, and spies from the British Empire and other countries. Today we are reading a book that was written by one of the most influential authors in the British Empire, and perhaps one of the most important writers for adventure books of all time. Today we are reading Ruyard Kipling's Kim. Just so you know, I'm doing a reading challenge where I'm reading the Modern Library's Top 100 Novels of the 20th Century. You can find more information in the description below. First, a TLDR on this book. You may be thinking to yourself, Ruyard Kipling, that name sounds very familiar. Well, it should be familiar because he is the man that wrote the children's novel, The Jungle Book. And I would say, especially in today's book, Kim, his personal life is very relevant to the telling of this tale because he lived in not only England, but also he grew up in what is now the city of Lahore in Pakistan. But at the time it was India. And he spent his teenage years there. And this is important to the story of Kim because a good portion of the story of Kim, the young hero in our story, is spent in the city of Lahore. Now, let's talk about Kim, the main character. Unfortunately, Kim is not like Kim Kardashian. Kim gets more of the Aladdin treatment, which means to say that he grew up as a poor street rat living in the slums of the city of Lahore. And he spends his days begging and stealing because his parents have died and have left him in abject poverty. However, not all of this is a sad story because one thing Kim has is incredible street smarts, which eventually lets him work for local people in his area. And he starts working for a horse trader who at the time Kim did not know but eventually finds out is actually a secret spy in service of the British Empire. So he occasionally starts working for the horse trader Mahbub Ali and eventually becomes more and more entangled in the worlds of spies and adventure. Now, a big important part of this story and why he is working for Mahbub Ali so much is because people can't tell his ethnic origin. And that's because even though he is technically white or Caucasian, he looks tanned, or when he gets enough sun, he gets enough color, he looks somewhat Asian or somewhat of mixed race. That means he can move among the white soldiers of the British Empire as well as the local Indian population in India. Kipling would totally be canceled if he wrote this kind of book now. Like, let's be honest. Now, as Kim begins his journey working for the horse trader and doing various jobs, he eventually runs into an old man who he finds out is a holy man who is searching and on a mystical quest for the river that looks like an arrow. And Kim, who sees in this old man sort of a father figure, becomes his chela or disciple and helps trying to get the old man where he needs to go. And in this particular case, the journey we're going on is the search for the river of the mystical arrow. And part of the reason that the Lama is interested in Kim is because Kim has a very interesting personal prophecy. Kim is supposed to meet a red bull and a bunch of other vague things that sort of fall into the realm of prophecy. You know, kind of like the tanned moon will look down on you in favor or something like that. So the book starts with not only this prophecy, which is part of how the story plays out, and you start to wonder, how will this prophecy affect the main storyline, as well as the search for the Holy Land that this holy man is doing with his disciple. And as Kim starts to travel with what is now his teacher, he also takes on a secret spy message from the horse trader to take it to another spy master in another town. And so then we see the two journeys intertwine, which follows the chela, the disciple, Kim, and his teacher. And then we also have the second Kim, the person who is trying to make sure that he works against the enemies of the British Empire. The first part of the book is actually quite comedic because we follow the holy man and Kim as they go on their journey, and part of it is just promising to curse people if they don't help them out, because I guess there's a lot of like curses and blessings that go on with sort of the more mystical class or the holy class that's in India. It really gives off kind of like a Huckleberry Finn kind of vibe, where it's just he's smarter than pretty much everyone else. So let's examine this in this passage where he has a prophecy of something that might come to be, but in reality, it's just a secret message that he's supposed to deliver to a spy master. So here's a quick passage. "But this shall be a great war, a war of 8,000. Kim voice shrilled across the quick gathering crowd, astonishing himself. "Redcoats, or our own regiments," the old man snapped, as if he were asking an equal. His tone made the men respect Kim. "Redcoats," said Kim at a venture. "Redcoats and guns." And so you see here that he makes up a story that sounds very believable, that could be a prophecy that could come true, because he knows about secret movements of various armies. So it's very funny, even though the topic is somewhat serious. And Kim's prophecy about himself that we talked about a little earlier in this video does come true, because he meets up with the Mavericks, whose symbol is like a red bull. However, the priests who are part of the regiment see that he has an amulet across his neck, and they look inside the amulet, which has the papers that belong to his parents, and specifically his father. Kim starts to find out things about himself that he didn't know before. Now, the adults who now feel responsible for young Kim have decided that they need to send Kim to school, and Kim, who is forced to go to basically like international boarding school. And here in the English military, he makes friends with the colonel. And it turns out that the colonel and Mabub, the horse trader, are actually allies in the spy master service that they do. And then he starts to learn from other people about what is called the Great Game. And in this book, the Great Game means the game of war against other nations, other armies, or against other cities or towns. And so he's learning about how to be a real spy. And so while he was bored during summer vacation, as you do, he goes to find a new spy master in the new town that he is in. And so during his school vacation, he meets Lurgan Salib, who ends up teaching him a lot of new tricks about how to be a real spy, and not just things that Kim already knew how to do. So he learns how to dress up in disguise, how to remember things he's only seen once before, and to practice his memory. And then he also learns sort of how to be careful and not get caught as a spy. And so both Mabub and Lurgan see Kim as a potential resource, but they recognize that he's still quite a young kid, and tells him to go look for information for things they're looking for while he goes and travels with the holy man once again. And Kim meets on a train while they're on their pilgrimage. He meets a man who is on the run from other spies, trying to make sure that his life is not in danger. And here's a short passage explaining the darker side of being a spy. "I was hunted like a wet jackal, but I broke through at Bandacoy, where I heard there was a charge against me of murder in the city I had left. The murder of a boy. They have both the corpse and the witnesses waiting. We of the game are beyond protection. If we die, we die. Our names are blotted from the book. That is all." Kim becomes more proficient both in being a spy and being the student of his teacher. However, he starts becoming involved in more and more high-stakes situations where he feels he may not be able to protect his teacher. This is what makes this a modern book, is that Kim constantly, as he is growing up, starts asking himself, who am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be a good person, someone who follows this holy man as his disciple? Or am I supposed to be someone who lives on the dark side of life, where I am trying to do great good, but at the same time, I am involved in politics, which means that I have to fear for my life and for the lives of those who care about me. The book comes to a great conclusion as they are forced to confront Russian spies, where Kim has the choice to either murder and get away with what he needs, or to run away with the holy man and to be safe with his teacher. The book ends without Kim murdering anyone, and he manages to get the necessary documents for his spy master. As part of this conclusion of this terrible incident on the mountain, the holy man feels he has found enlightenment, and then him and Kim discuss exactly what enlightenment means to both of them, or mostly to his teacher. And then the book ends quite abruptly. So after they discuss enlightenment, that's it. The book is pretty much done. That's all, folks. Now, on to the review. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book, especially because The Jungle Book is one of the books I adored reading as a kid. I feel very strongly that I'm not the right person to understand this book or read this book deeply or carefully, because I don't think I'm the kind of person who could understand the impact of what this book means, because I don't live at the time of the British Empire, and the relationship between India and Britain at that time is so very complex, and the relationship of Kipling as sort of an imperialist writer is such a complex subject, but I can still sort of review how I felt about this book. And again, like, I don't feel I need to relate to every book that there ever is, but in adventure stories, you always want to relate to the hero. And the problem is, I really have trouble relating to a hero pretends to be like a religious person, but then also is a spy, and then also is an orphan. Like, there's just too many things going on that, like, I can't relate to any of that. I just don't feel that is normal childlike upbringing, but maybe I'm wrong. This book is so clearly thematically about identity. It is about what kind of person does Kim want to be, and what is his identity as a person belonging to a nation or an empire. Because Kim, as a young person, does not have a normal life. And that's often why I found myself frustrated by this book, because Kipling is clearly such an excellent writer, and in this book, I feel, is sort of a thinly veiled criticism of boys' adventure stories, and also a semi-autobiographical tale of maybe what it was like for Kipling as a young man to grow up in India. And for the record, even though this is considered a fun adventure book, or is it? I don't know, but like, it's labeled as one. It does not feel like an adventure novel at all. It feels like a book for adults to look back on being a young person and what does it mean to be a young person. It's very philosophical. So I did enjoy that. After this book was done, I was left wondering, is Kim going to lead a good life? Or will he become like a ruthless killer of other spies? It's really unclear to me like where this book was supposed to take me and where I thought this book would go if it continued. I really don't know. So, do I think this book is worth reading? I would say maybe. What I would recommend is you could probably read something like a book from Mark Twain, and you would probably find much more sympathetic characters with what I feel is a similar feel in terms of sort of a young man's adventure story. And also a very well-written book. Well, I think I'll stop here. Did you enjoy this book? I'd love to know your opinion in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I always appreciate when you leave me comments, so feel free to do so in the comments below. Next time, we will be reading what I call to be a headache in a manuscript. We will be reading one of the hardest books in the English language. We will be reading Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. Well, that's all for me this time. I hope you're getting some amazing reading done, and I hope you have an amazing week. Now, as always, stay curious, stay reading.